One day before the Blessed Sacrament at La Trappe in 1974, I happened to notice that the senior monk praying on the prie-dieu on the other side of the small chapel, because the Blessed Sacrament Chapel was within one of those round chapels around the apse of the monastery. The sacrament was in the central one, and there were two kneelers. But one of them was Don Marie Bernard. Marie Bernard was a sculptor, and he was the one who sculpted the famous statue of Saint Thérèse, who had lived near the monastery. They were both in Normandy, Lisieux and La Trappe, aren't too far away. And that's the one with the crucifix and the roses, which has gone around the world ever since. But what I didn't know at the time was that he was by then, in his 90s roughly, had in earlier days been spiritual father to Mother Agnes. That's the Pauline of the manuscript of Saint Thérèse, her elder sister, who went into the monastery in early life and left little Thérèse twice an orphan, because she was attached to both her by now canonized mother and to her lovely elder sister, who took the place of the mother. And it did lead to some kind of distress, depression, whatever one wants to call it, but she wasn't in a good place mentally for a while, and she was healed by that intervention of the Blessed Mother, la Vierge du Sourire, the Virgin of the Smile. And she was able to get up and go again, and to insist on following her elder sister, and the other one by then as well, into the monastery. In fact, they all ended up there, although Leonie didn't quite make it, and she ended up in another one, the Visitation Convent. And then, of course, the mother and father being brought to the honours of the altar in recent times. And we had one time read in the refectory the life of the whole family. It's very interesting how grace functioned in that family. They were well protected, but they corresponded very well. And Céline, of course, was the last one, and she looked after the father as he became ill, an illness which caused great distress to Thérèse. She was very attached to her father. But with regard to the correspondence between Mother Agnes and La Trappe, it was all destroyed at the request of Mother Agnes before she died. But we were close to that monastery, and we had a fellow feeling with it. The abbot one day sent me there with an American Trappist who was returning, and therefore I was able to see the inside, and it was very interesting how that monastery was miraculously preserved during the bombardment, because Normandy was badly damaged. It was, of course, Thérèse who protected the monastery. And the abbot of La Trappe was a devotee of her, and he would often speak of her in chapter and elsewhere. And in one of the weeks of spiritual exercises, we had probably the world expert on her at the request of the abbot to give the lectures, the spiritual talks. So we had over 8 days the inside story of this great local saint. And great were her interventions, far more than actually we realized, even after death. And the inner secret of her. One time the novitiate put on a play for the community, and it was the life of Thérèse. And so studying that, we saw the real Thérèse, and we see also interesting things, how she had many traits. She was able to do a lot of things. She wrote a play on Joan of Arc and acted it. And we have a picture of her acting Joan of Arc in prison without a veil, her natural hair. And we also know that she was able to write interesting poetry. She also had a twinkle of a sense of humour, and that comes out when one sees her dying days. that's been put into book form, The Passion of Thérèse of Lisieux. And there she is. She at one point says, when the doctor is about to come in, "Oh, I'll drink a whole glass of milk, because when I drink milk I'm always more méchante, always more nasty." That was the way she could react to great suffering and pain. And then, of course, when it came to the real agony at the end, it was serious pain. And she would come out with things like, "Je ne saurais mourir, I don't know how to die." It was on the 30th, yesterday, that she actually petered out of tuberculosis. Many died of that disease at that time. But then her life began afterwards. Of course, in Lisieux itself we have this magnificent basilica on the hill, and on the dome we have a promise. "Je vais passer mon ciel à faire du bien sur la terre." I'm going to spend my heaven doing good upon earth. And these roses, in fact there was a shower of roses, of petals of roses, when she was canonized. I had one of them, I don't know where it's gone, I had it for a long time. And these roses still come, the roses of Thérèse, a little sign that she leaves. And she does listen when she is invoked. We've had many instances of her direct intervention, but she intervened actually very dramatically sometimes, and still does after death. I can think of one story of this lady who was in distress somewhere in India, and she was going to local authorities without a hope. Eventually she came to her turn to go in, and the person at the other side of the desk said, "Well, as it happens, your case has already been sorted out. This nun came in and pleaded your cause, and we agreed to go along with what she wanted, what she looked like." And I forget the details now, but it was when he saw her picture, it was that one, that she realised, the mother, that Thérèse had actually come into the room and acted for her. And on one could go. As it happens, Providence made it possible for us to see the inside of the life of Carmel, because one of the sisters came in with a primitive photographic machine, a camera. And this is very early photography now, and so we have these pictures. We have the one that she took when she was only an adolescent. One of the sisters took it when she was going to see the bishop. And to make her look mature, they had her hair put up in a bun. And she was fairly insistent. Eventually, of course, she went on pilgrimage with the family to Rome, and she got to see with the others the Holy Father, but she was only allowed to kneel before him and kiss his ring. But then she stayed on her knees and said, "Très Saint-Père, Most Holy Father, Most Holy Father," and she wanted to make her a plea, despite the others trying to get her to come away. And she made the plea, and the Pope calmly answered to address herself to the local bishop. So she did, and he did actually make it possible eventually for her to go in at the age of 15. And because of the early entry, she matured very quickly in the religious life, and she was able to be novice mistress herself. And we know that she was quite demanding in not tolerating faults. She wouldn't upset, but she would be clear. And she wanted saints with her in that convent. A good model then for those who have to form others. And at the other end of her life we have this one, which is not that long before she died. She was already very ill when that was taken. It is the last one taken before her death. We have one of her after her death with the crown of lilies on her, and that is a repose of sleep, blissfully tranquil, smiling almost in death. And of course then the family, now father and mother, Louis and Zélie, canonized, which is very rare in church history. A model also for parents, Jesus in the midst, the domestic church. So this is the saint of this day that we can invoke, not only on this day but in general, following her little way, which was one of relationship, one of being asleep in the arms of the lover and leaving it all to him, knowing that love adjusts all from within. We are not God, but we allow God to be God. We can also pray for graces ourselves. This prayer asks for what we need through the intercession of this powerful intercessor who has promised to listen from heaven and to shower us with these roses. Oh, little flower, please pick me a rose from the heavenly garden and send it to me with a message of love. Ask God to grant me the favour I thee implore, and tell him I will love him each day more and more. Come down, O Lord divine, seek thou this soul of mine, and visit it with thine own art of knowing. A comforter draw near, within my heart appear, and kindle it thy holy flame bestowing. Oh, let it freely burn, till earthly passions turn to dust and ashes in its heat consuming. And let thy glorious light shine ever on my sight, and clothe me round the while my path illumining. Let holy charity mine outward vesture be, and lowliness become mine inner clothing. True lowliness of heart, which takes the humbler part, and all its own shortcomings meets with loathing. And so the yearning strong, with which the soul will run, shall far outpass the power of human telling. For none can guess its grace, till he become the place wherein the Holy Spirit makes his dwelling. One thing which is less known is that she managed to practice charity so well that she completely took in the sister who annoyed her all the time in choir, convincing her that she was the most beloved, as it were. And one day, after having written this other nun a little essay called Memories of a Treasured Friendship, she asked casually, who was that nun who had the gift of annoying her in everything? And now Teresa would be in a cold sweat in choir because of the fidget next to her. She couldn't really do anything but offer up the music of the fidget as a prayer of music to the Lord. And when, I believe it was the priest who looked at her and said, "Mais ma sœur, c'était vous, my sister, it was you," she just couldn't believe it. That is a hidden martyrdom which we can ask for through our intercession, the grace of accepting the pain that's inbuilt in the day without inventing spectacular sacrifices of our own, while not practicing what's actually right there.